Failure is not the opposite of success. It is part of success. Today, we are honored and thrilled to welcome a guest whose name resonates with leadership, innovation, and a relentless drive in the world of business. Joining us from the vibrant city of Salinas, California, my guest is a true definition of excellence and entrepreneurial brilliance. He is not just a businessman, he is a visionary who has seamlessly navigated the realms of transportation, production, and healthcare, creating a legacy that stands out as a testament to his unwavering commitment and sickening work ethic. At the helm of a highly successful transportation empire, he has redefined logistics, mobility, and ensuring efficiency and reliability are the core of every endeavor. His production business, on the other hand, is a beacon of creativity and innovation, setting new standards of defying the conventional. But his endeavors do not stop there. He has also stamped his authority in the healthcare sector, founding and managing multiple clinic businesses. Each one is a pillar of excellence and a sanctuary of health and well-being. This man is the epitome of the entrepreneurial spirit, a man who has built empires, shaped industries, and inspired countless others to pursue their dreams with tenacity and relentlessness. His journey is simply a canvas of determination. Be prepared to be captivated as we dive deep into the mind of a man who has transformed challenges into opportunities and dreams into realities. Ladies and gentlemen, I give you David Drew. Well, David, we are live, my man. How are you doing, brother?
Good. Very good.
So this is our first time meeting, right?
Yes. Yep.
But we talked on the phone, and the way you sounded as if you were like talking to me as if you know me for like years.
Yeah. No, I warm up to everybody right away. Yeah. It's just my personality.
Yeah. Well, my man. So I've done a lot of research on you. And I'm very, very impressed. Like, you are a man of many faces and many hats. Yes. But before I get into all that, I really want to go before that. What was your child and upbringing like?
Well, let's see. Born and raised here in Salinas. Came from a family. Mom was divorced at 7 years age and remarried when we were, I believe, 10 years old. They re-separated when I was 14 years old. And so from that point on, raised by a single mom. Mm. So went to local schools here, graduated Salinas High, and that was the extent of my education. And right from there, straight into the workforce.
Yeah. Did you ever go to college or anything like that?
I did not.
Yeah.
Nope. Straight out of
high
school.
Wasn't an interest to you?
Well, it was an interest. I just didn't have the money at the time.
Yeah.
So, obviously contemplated college, but, at that time in life, being raised by a single mom, that just wasn't, available to us. So work was plentiful, so went right into the workforce.
Yeah. And how was that whole process? While you were in the workforce, did you meet somebody that kind of curated your mindset when it comes to becoming an entrepreneur and working for yourself?
I did. Well, when we were younger, when we were, in high school, teenagers, we'd work summer jobs, picking strawberries, working at the squid plant, packing squid. When I got my first real job out of high school, I went to work for a local grower here, and I worked on the ranch. I drove tractor. I worked in the fab shop. I was doing a lot of fabricating, welding, building stuff, and then my boss at that time was the ranch boss, but our big boss was in town where we owned shipping operations, and at that time, I think it was 1982, possibly, they had just bought a big strawberry operation, and they were setting up a brand new cooling facility in Salinas, California. So I had caught the attention of my bosses out on the ranch, and they approached me and asked me if I wanted to move in and manage one of the shipping facilities, in which I had no freaking idea of how to do that, but I certainly said, sure, I'd love to do it. So, but my boss at that time, his name was Peter Orr, and he was a top 10 grad from his class in Harvard, very intelligent guy, and he kind of became my mentor at that point. So I looked up to him. He was my leader, and he taught me a lot. I worked for him for 7 years until the company at that time was owned by a gentleman named J.R. Norton, and He served in the Reagan administration as Deputy Secretary of Agriculture. So when he took that position, he had to sell off his interest in the farming community. Subsequently, they shut down the operations. So that's when I didn't work there anymore and went into my own business. But prior to that, Peter had been my guy.
Yeah.
So
I feel like we take, a lot of people take for granted their mentors.
Yes.
You know, and even when I was growing up, I've always had a mentor throughout every phase of my life.
Sure.
You know, when I was, a student, or when I was a amateur fighter, or when I was a pro fighter, even after fighting, you know, I feel like we've always have, say, a mentor, or there's the mentor that we just stuck to, and it's we'll take their name to our grave.
Oh yeah, absolutely. No, Pete was my guy.
Yeah.
I mean, we all have that at different stages. And when I was in sports, you had coaches that you looked up to here and they held, and as you said, when we die, we'll still remember those guys. But business side, Pete was my guy. He was the guy that when I was a young kid, I wasn't business educated. I didn't come from Wharton School of Business or anything. I came from the School of Hard Knocks, and Peter was my guy that really enlightened me a lot of the business education. So
and I feel like when a lot of people getting into business or pursuing their business ventures, they read a lot about business. They read a lot about so on and so forth, but I feel like you can only do so much reading. There has to be more doing. I feel like that's where you gain all the experience.
Yeah. We had a term for that when I was a young kid working on cars, and we'd have a lot of guys that did a lot of reading, and we called them magazine mechanics. So the guys that were actually doing it did the mechanic work. So it's like a guy could tell you all about it, but until he's done it, it's not really that good. So, but yeah, totally get it.
Yeah, and before we went on air, you and I were kind of talking about how you and I have this this state of happiness that we are in when we are constantly working, and a lot of people try to push us kind of away, like, hey, take it easy. It's okay to take a break, so on and so forth. But I was saying off air, our form of happiness is working.
It is. Well, that drives you, and it's like, you'll see that most people that are successful, they have that trait in them, and that they're driven to work. And it's like, I've been told that my whole life. Dave, why do you work so much? Take time off. You've done well. You this, that. You know what? But you want to get ahead in life, you better bring it every day, all the time. There's no letting up once you get into the game. So you can let up when the game's over. So while the game's being played, go full throttle. So
yes. Yeah, it's crazy because I've interviewed and read a lot about successful people, and that's one of the common things that they have in common is they have this impeccable work ethic, and they have just the ability to show up every day.
I'd say that's probably the single most contributing factor to success is the work ethic. I mean, obviously, there's much more to it. I mean, obviously, soaking up as much education in your industry as you can, but if you don't have the work ethic, you're not going to make it. So that's probably the number one thing. Yeah.
And when you started to dabble into business, when did you start to realize man, I'm actually pretty good at this?
It was kind of sink or swim when I got into it, and everything was self-taught. Nobody was there to teach me. With my trucking industry, when I got into that industry, everything was self-taught. And, I just kind of figured out that, look, I dove in head first into the deep end, and I figured out, you better figure out how to sink, swim or sink. So I prefer to swim. So it took probably a couple of years to learn the craft, and then as you're doing it, you want to learn as much knowledge as you possibly can about whatever industry that is that you go into. Be like a sponge, suck up everything, read every trade journal, everything you can get your hands on to be an expert, do it. If you don't know your industry, you're not going to be good at it. So but that's, essentially when you get in, I didn't have somebody to hold my hand through the deal. I just dove in and learned, self-taught. So.
Yeah, and I feel like being into it is where obviously you gain the more experience, right?
Yeah.
And then being in places like this, like me being here and sitting with people who are simply better than me is the biggest life hack that I can do. You know what I mean?
Well, that drives me. It's like I've always aspired to look up to guys that have done something great, and I'm like, wow. I sit there and I just listen to them, and I suck in as much as I can from them. So Yeah, it's always good to look at other guys that are successful and listen to everything and take it all in.
Yeah. And I feel like there's like two types, right? Where there's a person who looks at somebody who's more successful than them and like, man, that inspires me, that drives me. And there's this other side where they're like, man, forget this person. This person got everything handed to them. F them, F that. It's like,
I see that all the time. I see that. Yeah. Some people are inspired and some people are jealous. And yeah, you can't be jealous of somebody's success.
It didn't get anywhere, right?
Gets you nowhere.
The victim mentality gets you nowhere.
Being angry and being a victim gets you nowhere. Yeah. So it's like, be a doer.
I always tell people that. I'm like, name me somebody who's successful with the victim mentality.
Yeah, there is none.
There is none, right?
They don't exist.
So, and of all, and we were talking about this on the phone. When we were on the phone with each other. You were saying that you've worked 7 days in a row since you can remember.
Yeah, well, literally, I believe for the last 30 years, I've worked 7 days a week. I've not missed one holiday in 30 years. I've worked every Christmas, Thanksgiving, 4th of July, Memorial, Labor. I've never missed one holiday, literally here in the office. And yeah, I haven't missed one in 30 years.
Do you ever get burnt out? Have you ever had a phase where?
I do. At certain points in your life, it's like, I think everybody goes through fatigue at some point, and whatever you do, whether it's in sports or anything.
You are such like I said it before in the intro, like you have a variety of businesses that you are into.
I do.
Man, what are some of the ones in the businesses that give you the greatest headaches and the greatest gains?
Oh boy, that's a tough one. Well, by far the biggest headaches is the trucking industry. It's, trucks don't stop; they run 24/7, so it's constant. When you got a few hundred trucks on the road every day, you don't go one day without a problem. I mean, it can happen at any time.
Yeah,
2 in the morning, 3 in the morning, 4 in the morning, you're getting the calls, and that by far is probably the most, frustrating and rewarding. Probably, I have a production company. I do a lot of live musical events. I'm a big concert promoter. I think pulling off a big concert and looking out and seeing 15,000 people in the stands having a time of their life, that's pretty rewarding.
Yeah.
So, because when you walk away from the event that night, you think back when you were a kid to the first concert that you went to and what an impact it made on you, and then you walk away from doing your own event thinking, 15 years from now, all those people will still have that as a memory.
Yes.
As we all do it. You talk with your buddies about the first show you went to, and me and my buddies went to the Santa Cruz Civic and saw the Ramones back in the 80s, and it was like the time of our life. And, 40 years later, we're still bullshitting about it and laughing about it. So they make good memories. So that's kind of rewarding.
I know a lot of people who host events, and they always tell me that they can enjoy it because they're always making sure is everything okay? Is everything going good? Is the crowd happy? Is the music okay? Is the audio okay? They can never sit back and actually enjoy the moment, right? But you telling me right here, go ahead.
Well, no, they're absolutely right. There's no doubt about it. I'll say for probably the first 10 years of doing shows, it was like, you're so focused on execution that you've pleased everybody and you don't have any time to enjoy the show. Literally zero to see it. I mean, quite frankly, I just did a show a few months back in July with Little Big Town, but I brought an artist in that was a literally unknown kid. But the kid was so amazing, and I'd watched some of his cover songs on some old 70s rock. And I thought I never saw a kid sing in this fashion. And I thought, because that's the time I grew up, and those were some of my favorite acts. Unfortunately, they're not alive anymore. But to see a kid do them at that level, I thought, wow, this is amazing. So
was that Jesse?
It was Jesse Kinch.
Man,
the kid was
he's
amazing.
Unreal.
Oh, he was over the top. And Brad Paisley had told me about him, and I saw him. He had won a show on ABC. It was called The Rising Star. And so I kind of followed the kid, and I didn't know what he had been doing for the last, 7 years since that series aired. And I didn't realize that he had developed brain cancer, and he had a big tumor on his head, and they did a surgery. And, it was pretty, traumatic event for him. I mean, his career was blossoming, and then he was diagnosed with cancer, brain tumor, and it was right on that part of the brain that affects fine movement in his hands to be able to play a guitar and everything else. Long story short, he had teamed up with some surgeons in New York and had the surgery, removed the brain tumor. He went through about a year of rehab and got back all of his use of his hands and everything else. And it just so happened at that time I started to research the guy because I was looking for an opening act, and he came to mind, and I thought, how cool would that be to mix him up with a country show? Because people are doing that now. And before we wouldn't do that. It'd be traditionally country or rock. But I thought, well, I love the kid. I was going to throw him on there, first of all, because I liked him. So, but anyhow, long story short, we brought the kid out. It was amazing. It was his first comeback show. He was on stage, so I had my whole staff, and I pretty much delegated 45 minutes of my activity to everybody else just so I could go up and watch him on stage. So me and a handful of my friends that are older, we just wanted to go up and see a few of our favorite songs, and it was amazing. That was the first time I actually, believe it or not, and he was just an unknown support act. It wasn't one of headliner like Blake Shelton or Aerosmith or one of these big guys. This was just a kid that was so talented, and probably brought me most joy at any show because I went up on stage and just watched and filmed the whole performance. So yeah, it was super cool.
Yeah, that song in The Rising Star, he says, that song, his theme of I Put a Spell on You, unreal.
Over the top.
Unreal.
Every song that guy covers, and I'm an Allman Brothers fan, and when I saw him do Whipping Post, I was just like, all right, my cup is full. Whatever happens tonight, I'm good. It's like, so I saw that, and then he did A Whole Lot of Love by Zepp, and it was over the top.
Yeah.
So for me personally, it was like I walked away and I said, I don't care. Whatever else happens tonight, I'm good. I'm good. So, it was fun.
Yeah, isn't it crazy, my man, where, say, Jesse, for instance, where he has so much momentum coming off from Rising Star, he wins the entire show, and then he gets that incident, right? We kind of assume that, we're going to scale through life, grow old, and everything is going to be fine. We're going to die a very old age, but sometimes incidents happen. And kind of what we were talking off air, you recently went through a heart attack.
I did.
How was that, man? Like that whole process?
It's life-changing, literally. I mean, it's been a year and a half now since the heart attack, but it was weird. I woke up that morning. I forget what day. It was a midweek day, and I woke up at like 5 in the morning, my normal time, 4:45, 5. And jumped in the shower, and my arms were kind of tingling, and I felt like real anxious. And I thought, wow, something's just not quite right with me today. And I thought, this is very unusual. So I called my girlfriend, and I said, I'm just not feeling right today. I said, I feel off. I feel like I'm balmy, sweaty, like I got anxiety, and I said, it's just not normal. And she's like, well, stay home. She goes, you work 24/7. Why don't you just stay in bed and take a little nap? And I thought, I'm like,
sounds cute.
I'm like, maybe I should do that. And about 2 minutes later, I was like, nah, screw that. Let's go to work. So I blasted into work, and I arrived here at like 6:45 in the morning, and checked my blood pressure, and it was 220/170. It was like off the charts. So I called her back, and I said, hey, I think I should go into the hospital and get checked because my blood pressure's like crazy. She said, okay, let me get up. I'll come down, pick you up. We'll go to the hospital. I said, okay, great. So I went back into work, and then she showed up and said, are you ready to go to the hospital? I said, just give me like 30 more minutes just to finish up this project I'm on. And so she's like, come on, let's go. And I'm like, okay, 20 more will be done, and then we'll go. And so I got wrapped up with what I was working on, and I walked up to my office and walked in, and she was sitting at my desk, and I was sitting on the couch, and I said, just give me a second to kind of, clear my head, and then we'll roll. And I literally knelt down, and I looked up at her, and I said, man, I feel a little dizzy. And boom, that's when it hit me, and I just dropped. And of course, I didn't remember it because I was out. But I hit the ground. she jumped up and then tried to get me and get my head so I wouldn't choke. And then she screamed for more of the girls up in the front offices. They all came in and saw that I was down, and one called 911 and the other two were trying to get me rolled over to get me to breathe, but I wasn't breathing. And so they started screaming. And then my dispatch staff, and I have about 16 guys that work in the back, they heard the screaming and all the commotion. They ran up to the front, and I was literally there lifeless on the floor. And I'd been down for probably a minute and a half at that point. And my lead dispatcher, David, came in, and I was blue, no pulse. And at that point, was clinically dead. And, part of it, when you do die, you relieve yourself of everything. And, so I started urinating, and he saw that, and he immediately thought, man, he's dead. So, instinctively, he didn't know CPR, but he just jumped on me and started just punching me in the chest. And he stayed on it for like 30 seconds, and boom, he got me back. I took a breath of air, and at that exact moment, the ambulance was showing up. So he stayed on me, just beating on me, and then the paramedics arrived. I went down again, but they had the paddles, so they zapped me, got me back, loaded me on a gurney, threw me in the ambulance, and then I guess I flatlined 2 more times en route to the hospital. So fortunately, the hospital was 5 blocks away, so they got me there pretty quick. Put me in emergency surgery. Found a massive blood clot in my right coronary artery. The doctors got up there, removed it, and then replaced it, put 3 stents in that artery to keep me all nice and open up and flowing good. And, woke up later that afternoon in the hospital and had no idea where I was at, what had happened. But fortunately, I had a brilliant staff that worked on me at the hospital, and got on it immediately, and got me back. And, to this day, it's been a year and a half. I think I'm in pretty good shape now. So, obviously lifestyle changes, diet changes, a lot of medications and stuff now, but I'm still here, and I still feel pretty good. So I think the prognosis now is pretty good. So.
And I know you're a working man. You love obviously solving problems and
love it.
being here. I know that's a recovery process after having a heart attack. How long was it before you were able to work again?
Oh, I was back to, I'm like, as soon as they let me out of the hospital, I was back. So, no, it's like, you can't keep me down long. If they let me out, I come to work. So, no, I came to work immediately. I think the day they let me out, I shot right back to the office. Moving a little slower, but, and then, funny thing about heart recovery and stuff, they don't want you lounging around. They immediately get you back into rehabilitation. So I don't think it was 3 or 4 days after I'd been out, I was already in rehab. So I was already on the treadmill and working, and they move on it quick. They've advanced a lot. The technology on the heart now really advanced, and we are very fortunate for where we're at. We have a extremely good heart center here. We work in conjunction with Stanford, so we've really got a tremendous staff. So very blessed that it happened here, and I had that good of staff to get me back. So, but they get you back in the game quick, and it's like, hey, no, get back in there and get healthy. So,
do you view life a little bit differently since you?
Oh 100%. Yeah, and when you get stopped like that, obviously at that point you realize you're not immortal anymore, and with your age, so you reassess life at that point. You're saying, I put it down pretty hard for a lot of years, so probably time to make those adjustments in your life. So you have to be smart enough to know when it's time to look at retirement as an option. You see it in the NFL or everywhere else. Brady wants to play forever, but reality is, all right, bro, you made it to 45. It's like you had a good hell of a run. So those things all start to come into play, and you have to accept reality that we're all going to get old, and you want to end the game with a good quality of life. So all that you worked for, you can go out and enjoy it. So that's the one thing with entrepreneurs and stuff. We sacrifice everything when we're young, strong, and healthy, and all of our friends are at the lakes and parties and concerts and everything else, and you're here grinding away on a Saturday or Sunday.
Yeah.
The hope behind that is when you get older, you'll be able to go enjoy that, and they're still working at 60 plus, and you're on the boat having a Mai Tai or something.
Yeah.
So, so that's where I'm at in my stage of life right now. I'm trying to balance that. I'm trying to wind down and, delegate some stuff and reposition where I'm at in life to have some more personal time.
Yeah. And it's funny because I feel like a few years back, everybody wanted to be an NBA player. Everybody wanted to be a football player. Everybody wanted to be a doctor, a lawyer, like such a big title, right? Yeah. Nowadays, everybody wants to be an entrepreneur. Everybody wants to own a business. But it's kind of funny how they think it's all sunshine and rainbows. It's problems every single day.
They all think it until they become it. And then it's like, it sounds easy from the outside. And, business is tough. And anybody that runs business will tell you that. Anybody's a sustained business that, got in and are still around 10 years later, they'll tell you it's no cakewalk. Everybody thinks, I just, get a little shingle and hang it on the roof there with my name on the building. In 2 years, I got my own business. Yeah. Sadly, it doesn't work out that way.
Yeah.
You only get out of the business what you put in, and if you don't work your tail off, you're not going to reap the rewards. So people say, "Oh, you have it so easy." I'm like, I don't think you know what easy is. Come in and spend a day in my shoes, and you'll come back and say, "Wow, I had no idea how hard this was." And it's tough. I mean, and some businesses, obviously, some are harder than others. Unfortunately, in the trucking industry, it runs 24/7, so there's no escape.
Yeah.
It's always going. It's fluid, and and we even have the worst because we haul perishable commodities that unfortunately don't take the weekends off. We haven't invented a seed that stops growing on the weekends. So I wish we did, but that doesn't happen. So some of the other industries where you have inventoriable commodities, you may get a little break in action, but not in fresh produce. So it comes out of the ground every day. We got to harvest it. It's got to be trucked. So you never stop. It's 24/7. So, but all businesses have their inherent problems. It doesn't matter what you do. You're only going to get out what you put in.
Yeah.
So,
and how did you callous your mind to be able to handle those problems? Did it, in the beginning when you were starting your business ventures, did you handle problems the same way, or did you think as you put in the years, they kind of just calloused you and hardened you up a little bit?
No, it certainly does. I mean, when you handle problems where you're a 20-year-old and you're a 60-year-old, your problem solving is much different at that point. When you're young, you take everything to the heart. I mean, it hurts and it's painful. And when you get older and callous, they kind of roll off you. They don't hurt as bad as they used to. You deal with them in a different fashion just because you become so used to it at that point, you know, and you have to accept reality. And when you're young, you think you can change everything to mitigate problems, and unfortunately they just happen in life, and so you just deal with them differently. It's you get older, you get wiser. You hear the saying, but it's true. So I took everything to heart when I was young. It's just like, oh my God, I failed. Oh my God, shit. When I got older now, I was like, shit, happened. Let's deal with it. So,
and you were showing me off air that one of your trucks recently caught on fire. Yeah. And it was in the news.
Oh yeah,
so,
last night.
But when you were explaining it to me, it was like,
it
is what it is.
Before I'd freak out, but now it's like, well, we had actually two within an hour of each other last night. I had one of our trucks that were driving on a highway, and some 18-year-old kid, drunk, driving straight in our lane. So we have the dash cam in our vehicle, and it shows the kid coming straight for us in our lane, and fortunately my driver had the wherewithal to swerve the vehicle. Yeah. So we swerved. Had we not, we'd literally killed him, because big semi versus car, it never works out well for the car. Yeah. So fortunately my driver was on his A game. He swerved, still took out the truck, but it sideswiped it, and the passenger was survived, no injuries, and tore our truck up pretty good too. But fortunately, there was nobody injured. Everybody walked away. Hour later, we had a truck that had an electrical fire, and it ended up taking down the whole truck and trailer in Phoenix, Arizona. So it was all over the 10 o'clock news down there. My guys are forwarding me the news clips, and I'm like, lovely. That'll be fun to wake up to tomorrow. But I said, it is what it is. What are you going to do? I mean,
it's impressive seeing you react that way too. Very stoic.
That's why we pay for that insurance every year. So insurance adjuster won't like us, but so unfortunately, even the one that was not our fault, that driver had no insurance. So he was uninsured, drunk driving. My insurance company will still pay, and then I'll pay more next year. So it's just how it works.
Yeah.
So you get used to it. So
yeah.
But fortunately, in both incidents, nobody got hurt. So, that's all you can ask for at the end of the day. Accident's going to happen. It's part of the industry, and, just deal with it the best you can. Notify everybody and replace whatever was damaged in the deal and move on.
Yeah.
What you can do.
And you, in all the years that you've been in business, what are some of the biggest things that you see when it comes to people making the wrong mistakes, and therefore their mistakes is what makes their business crumble? What are the biggest things that you recognize?
I think probably the biggest failure of business is lack of work ethic. That's probably, I've seen a million guys that came into my industry and they're absent leaders. And if you're an absent leader, you're going to get no result out of your business. Likely it's not going to endure. Unless you've got just a superstar employee that will cover for your shortcomings. And fortunately, most don't. They just don't.
So in all the niches of business that you are in, what's the crazy thing is, in this world is like evolving constantly.
Yeah.
How do you possibly stay like competitive and stay steps ahead of all these other people that are in your niches?
Well, you know what I think separates us from the pack? I think it's our experience, is that we're that much better than everybody. It's like, we have had guys challenge us every year, rival trucking companies. They've come and go over the last, 40 years. And I think what sets us apart is we're just so good at what we do. We've done it for so long. And I mean, you find that in many industries, and, whatever it is, I mean, you'll find a local bakery that they're just the best and they've been doing it forever. And it's like, that's your go-to because they're that good at what they do. And, and that's just because they've had all those years to perfect their craft, and they've aspired to do that every year, and they've gotten better, and they've set a higher bar every year. And then after that many years, it's like, well, it's hard to duplicate that. So it's like, I think that's what gives us the competitive edge. I think it's our experience, and the other thing is, when you get great employees, don't lose them. Fight for them, keep them, whatever it costs. It's like, well, it comes to a certain degree. You can't have an employee say, well, I need $1 million a year. But whatever the industry is, you have to outpace your competitors.
Yeah.
If the market is this on this job, be a little bit more.
Yeah.
Give your guys a little bit more. And if they're giving to you and you got it and you're doing well, give it to them.
Yes.
And if you can keep that whole crew tight, because I tell you, there's nothing worse than constantly training and bringing new people in. When you got a seasoned crew of guys that are experts at what you do, you execute well because everybody knows what they're supposed to do.
Yeah.
And you've seen that with pro ball teams when you have the same team all together and they're very successful. For the Niners had a team and they were under Montana, and you had New England Patriots, and you had the Steelers and their Bradshaw, and when you keep that dynamic, it just seems to work, and they win Super Bowls. Yeah. And that's what our job is to do, is to win every year. So if you can keep a good team behind you and gain all the experience, I think it just gives you the competitive edge.
Yeah.
So, but those are the things that I've always, focused on. It was like I've had guys with me almost since the inception. I don't let them go. It's like blood in, blood out. This is we die together, baby. We roll until the Kragers crack. We don't go out that easy. So, but that's my advice to anybody. When you got somebody good, appreciate them, show them that, and keep them.
Yeah.
If you can retain them, keep them. So, and that makes your business strong. So we're in that area between small business and large business, and I know everybody in my operation. I know everybody's name. I know all their families. I've been their financial advisor. I've been their marriage counselors. I've been everything you can imagine. I've been that to them. So.
You're everybody's 911.
Oh yeah, no, and love doing it. I mean, it's just like family. It's like, when you have a good family, you're there to help your family.
Yeah.
So, and they reciprocate with me. So, if I need something, I can go to a number of people and they'll step up in a second because it reciprocates. When they need me, I'm there for them, and when I need them, they're there for me. So it's win-win for all of us.
Yeah.
It's all good.
What are some of the key principles that you look for when bringing somebody into your team?
I can tell you now it's changed a lot. So it's, and I'm not capping on anybody, but the newer generation, it's a little bit different than my generation. So it's, when you can make it on time every day, that's a big accomplishment now with some of these kids. So, and when I grew up, start time was 8. You really expected to be there at 7:45.
Yeah.
Be prepared to work at 8 o'clock. Like, wasn't like show up at 8:15, run to the time clock, punch it, and then go park your car.
Have a breakfast.
Yeah. So it's like, okay, I'm here at my desk, but I brought my McDonald's in with me, and I'm going to spend 45 minutes putting this down my pie hole before I turn on my computer. And it's like, so it's a little bit different now. It's, it's a struggle with some of the newer generation just because I think they didn't have it as hard. I think kids didn't have it as hard, and the generation before me had it much harder. So I grew up from that generation that they had it hard.
Yeah.
I mean, real hard. And we thought we had it hard, but it wasn't anything like my parents' generation and then their parents, growing up in the Depression and stuff. So I think families all lived hard, and in the last 20, 30 years, families have all lived good. So the kids haven't experienced all those experiences, so nothing's that important to them. People have lived fairly comfortable, and, raising kids are a lot different nowadays. So sometimes I look at my generation and say, were we too weak on everybody? Did we screw the pooch because we did a little better and we didn't want them to struggle? Yes. But we might have created a monster at the same time. So, I don't know.
You're damned if you do, damned if you don't.
Yeah, and because obviously, I think everybody does this. We're all guilty of this. We want somebody not to have as hardest time as we had to go through. So, and especially with your children and stuff, you want them not to have to struggle as bad. Yeah. But sometimes that can be a detriment to the child, when they get out into the workforce, because let's just say magically you disappeared, but your child wasn't instilled with work ethic and stuff. Is he going to be able to survive out there on his own? Yep. So, that's the thing that, we all ask ourselves, are we part of the problem? Should we have, parented differently and been stronger on the kids? So it's a challenge, and I think all of us, we face it now. I think generations are changing, and so we try to get them in, and we try to slowly correct them back into what we like to see them produce. So, and that's tough, and we have to make concessions and accept that sometimes I'm going to pay 4 hours of labor a day to watch a kid TikTok. So that's reality nowadays. Yes. So I'm like, wow, you got a great job. You worked 8 hours, 4 of that was on TikTok, and you got paid for it at $30 an hour. I'm like, that's a good deal.
Isn't it so crazy how people nowadays are making money?
Oh, it's crazy. Yeah, I'm a little out. Even though I do a lot of stuff in promotions and stuff, I'm not as in tune with the younger generation. Obviously they're far more advanced than my generation, and it's crazy. They all aspire to be like TikTok influencers. I don't even know what it is, to be honest with you, but they all like, I want to be an influencer. I'm like, influence to do what? And they're like,
just dancing and
just whatever. And I'm like, do you make money with it? And they're like, well, some do, and I'm like, well, yeah, some make money too. Michael Jordan makes money, but I'm not going to play in the major, NBA. So
Yeah.
it's like you got to accept reality. It's like likely, even all of us, you played sports and you were in the MMA and I played sports, football and everything, but we're all not going to be Tom Brady or whatever, and that's reality. The rest of us are going to go out and get a job.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's that one social media influencer that makes $1 million, but likely it's probably not going to be you.
Yeah.
So you got to accept reality that, most of us, 95%, are going to go beat the 8 to 5 every day and work hard.
Yeah.
So you got to accept that. And so we just try to work with the younger generation and get them more acclimated. I think when they get a real job, they get a adjustment. They're like, wait a minute, we got to work all day? Yeah, it's kind of the concept. You work and I give you this thing. It's called a paycheck, and it kind of works like that. So
Yeah.
but yeah, it's a little different. But we're getting there. We're bridging the gap.
Yeah.
So I always razz them pretty hard, the younger kids, but. I mean, we still love them. And we've developed a lot of young kids that started, literally this was their first job and they're still here today and they're doing really good. So, it's really neat when you can bring in a young kid. Maybe it's a young kid similar to my story, just high school graduate or something. And then you bring him in and you can give him the skill set where he can climb the ladder.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, 7 years later, he's a homeowner. And in California, that's a big accomplishment nowadays. There's not many people. It's not easy for a child in California to get into a home nowadays. Totally different than when I was a kid. If you hunkered down and you saved like everything, stayed at your parents' house and rat-holed money for 2 years or so, you could get a down payment and get into a home. And, homes back then were, $70,000, $100,000. Now in a neighborhood like that, they're $800,000, $900,000. It's very hard for a kid nowadays, especially with the cost of goods and the cost just to exist. For a kid in California now, you literally exist just to pay bills. So it's very hard to accumulate unless you have a family member or somebody else that can help you get into home ownership. That's why we're really proud as a company when we're able to get these guys, and we've helped a lot of them, through whatever way, if we've got to bonus them out to get them to that down payment level or cosign or whatever. But when you can get a young kid and get him into his own home and has some pride in that, that's a huge accomplishment. So it's good for us as the employer, and it's good for the employee, and it makes a good bond. And those are the guys that we still have. I mean, some of them that I've had for 30 years. But we did the same thing, and it reciprocates. So when we're able to accomplish that, that's awesome. So.
Yeah, I feel like when you're able to create jobs for people, it's a huge win. The fact that they're purchasing a home, they're putting food on the table, they're providing for their families. That's the best.
Well, it's the best feeling ever. When I remember when I bought my first home, I thought, and back then, mortgage rates, I don't know, I think it was like 9%. I thought it was like a smoking deal. It's like, yes. I'm like, I'm in my first home. This is awesome. And, I did all the work on my house myself. But yeah, I mean, that's the American dream. If you can obtain your own home and raise a family and stuff and retire nice, it's kind of like the dream we're all fighting for.
Yeah.
So it's good.
And it's funny when they do start businesses, I know the outside world, they kind of see that as like, oh, they must make a ton of money.
Yeah.
And, they obviously do, but a lot of the money gets reinvested into the business.
Yeah. Probably the first 20 years of industry. I mean, literally for the first 10, I lived at the office. I came in, I worked, I booked all the freight deals, I got out and drove the trucks, I drove them at night, I drove home, 2 hours of sleep, I'd sleep in the office on the couch, take a shower in the morning, repeat the process for probably a decade, just to pay the bills, pay the workers, and reinvest in the business. So you're constantly reinvesting in the business. The business can't produce if you don't feed it, and you don't change with the times, and you continuously feed your operation. So that's super important in businesses. You've got to constantly feed that monster because it needs to be fed. It's like anything else. It's not going to produce if it's not healthy. Yeah. So guys, and I see them make that mistake all the time, the guys will bleed their companies dry, and they need the investment on the infrastructure. and they just don't pay attention to it. But
Yeah.
yeah, that's a big one. It's businesses need constant attention and constant money poured into them to keep them on the cutting edge. So
Yeah.
people, I don't think realize that. It's like, yeah, the company probably made a lot of money, but they had to invest a lot back in to continue to give everybody in the operation what they need to survive. So
Yeah.
it's a long process. There's no, well, I don't know any. Maybe there are, and I do see them from time to time. So I set up my business and I retired in 3 years. It's like, yeah, there's a few guys that hit it out of the park. Unfortunately, I wasn't one of those guys. So, but yeah, there's some industries, and these are a lot of the stuff in the tech sector and stuff where these guys can capitalize on trending markets and stuff, and they're at the cutting edge and flip a company. They do happen. It's not the everyday things, but they do happen, and it's kind of neat when you see them happen. But most business, I'd say 95% or better, it's a long process.
Yeah.
It's just not, I got rich in 3 years. You got rich in 40 years and you killed yourself doing it.
Yeah.
And hopefully at 40 years you still have a quality of life to enjoy that.
Yes.
So,
yeah. And when people say invest into the stock market, correct? To study a company, you have to look at the balance sheet.
Yeah.
But one thing they also need to take account is study the CEO. Look at his track record.
Absolutely.
Because if there's an undisciplined CEO, what's going to happen to the company?
Yeah, absolutely. I argue with people about this all the time. The guy that is behind the wheel on the ship, he's the guy that's going to keep it away from the iceberg or put it into an iceberg. So you're only as good as the skipper on board. If that skipper is horrible, he could put you into an iceberg. If he's talented, he can take anything and master it and navigate around anything. You're very true. It's like when I look at prospects, I always look at who's controlling, what their acclimates are. Is this guy a leader? Is he a true leader, and is he mastered it? Most guys can adapt to, even if it's similar business, they have that acclimate already in them, and they're winners, and they figure out how to win. So, yeah, but you're absolutely right. That is something that I always look for is, who's the guy in charge?
Yeah.
Is he a good leader? Is he a mediocre leader? Or is he a horrible leader? And it's like, probably not investing there. So, yeah.
I know it's always important even to look at, say, like the people who you bring into, are they going to be, say, stocks that you invest in the long term?
Yeah.
Or are these people who are just maybe transactions where it's like you're just going to get a quick, short, simple nut, you know what I mean? But it's like, I want longevity.
Yeah.
I want something that's going to take off long term, that's going to benefit and grow the company.
Yeah.
So that's important, like even the onboarding, but even the firing process. How is that? Is that hard?
I'll tell you, honestly, for me, it's probably the hardest. It's like, I don't know. I have a heart, and it's probably my weakest deal. And it's like, don't let that out. But it's probably my weakest deal is I hate firing people. It really just breaks my heart to have to fire. So for me to fire you, you really screwed up. And it's like, because I'm all about second chances, third chances. I mean, hell, people took second and third chances on me, and I turned out okay. And it's like, it takes a lot for me. I've always thought this in life. It's like, if I couldn't get a person to produce, I failed as being a teacher. And so it's like, I try to get the most out of them. But if you cross the line and just do something like, total bonehead, then there's just no, if you go and assault an employee or something of that nature or something, then my hands are tied at that point. It's like, there's certain lines you just can't do. It's like, bro, you're fired. I can't redeem this one. But yeah, that's my last resort is firing. I usually try to see if I can elevate other guys, and I argue about this all the time. I had friends of mine in the industry, they have no problem whacking a guy in 2 seconds. If he's not delivering the goods, they're like, he's out of here. So I'm like, and I don't know. That's probably my weakest point. So if you go to that, that's, if anybody said, he's got too big of a heart, that's probably my weak point.
Yeah, I feel like that would be one of my weak points too,
That's
honestly.
That's a tough deal. It just depends on your character. Everybody's different. Some guys have no problem, just like this guy is not delivering the margins we expected out of him. Whack him. Let's cut our losses early. I've always been one of those guys that, and sometimes I've regretted it, that I invested, multiple years trying to elevate a guy, and I thought, I gave everything I had to teach him, and it just didn't change. They just didn't want to change, and so some of those ones hurt.
Yeah.
When you're like, say, hey, why don't you fire that guy? I'm like, let's give him one more chance.
Yeah.
And you think that you're going to get them back on track, and you just weren't able to do it. Those hurt a little bit. So, you have to accept the fact that you're not going to, people are people. And it's like, if they don't want to help themselves, you can try and I can try, and we could be the best at trying to correct that behavior. But if they don't truly want to change, it's not going to happen.
No.
Because that individual's got to be the guy that ultimately makes that decision inside. He's got to look at himself and say, you know what, I got a good leader that's trying to help me, but I got to reciprocate and I got to change my life.
Yes.
And until they make that personal choice, if they don't make it, they're never going to get there.
Yeah.
But I give it hell trying though, so that's all you can do. So I think, I don't know, I just have this philosophy. I think that in life, if you live your life and your intentions are good and honorable, I think you'll reap that in the afterlife. So that's just kind of always been my philosophy. So as I said, it could be one of my weaknesses, but it's just who I am as an individual.
Yeah.
So, everybody has their method and what they want to do. As I said, sometimes it's bit me in the ass, but it's still who I am. So,
Yeah, from somebody of your status, usually they don't talk like how you talk when it comes to leadership. They kind of like, I'm the big guy, I'm the CEO, I'm the one that has all these companies. Leave me alone. I'll talk to you later. Leave me alone. You know what I mean? But you're very close with people. You're very close with your employees. You're very close with your team.
I've been that way my whole life. I don't ask my employees to do any job I wouldn't do. I still work with everybody. It doesn't matter where they're at in the whole operation. If they're the forklift driver over at the shipping facilities, I'll go drive forklift with them. I'll go help them load trucks. It doesn't matter because I've done all those jobs. I grew up doing them. So to me, it's just part of who I am and who the company is. And I love them all because I did every one of their jobs. So I know exactly what they do. I lived in their world, and, it's just, to me, it's natural. I never put myself above anybody in the company. I've never done that, and I've always led by the front. I don't lead from behind yelling at people. I'm on the front on the horse with a bayonet in my hand saying, let's get them, guys. And that's just been my style of leadership since I started in the industry. So.
Did your mentor pass that on to you, or was that just through experience?
No, actually, he led from the back, and I led from the front. Totally different. Why, though? We had a difference. I respected him. He taught me a lot up here, but he was an Ivy League guy. I was a brute force guy. I didn't have that formal education. I wished I did. I could have led from the back, and I'm like, shit, it would have been a much easier life, right? So, unfortunately, I didn't have that, so I had to make up through it with work ethic.
Yes.
Some guys have the brain power up here, and they can direct everybody else to do it that has work ethic. I just wasn't at that level, so I'm like, shit, but, and there's ways that, and you'll find that to be true in industry, is people with a heavy pedigree, they don't have to work as hard. I mean, they can work a little bit less because their brain is so advanced, and they've got a real good knowledge of what they're doing, and they can direct other individuals to attain those tasks.
Yes.
So, unfortunately, I didn't do that. I didn't go on to pursue higher education, so I had to do it the old-fashioned way. It was like outwork them.
Yeah.
You know what? You may be smarter, but you won't outwork me. I can guarantee you that. So, you may have a higher degree, you may have a master's, you may have whatever, but you won't outwork me.
Yeah.
So it's like at 12 hours, you're going home. I'll still be here at 20.
Right.
So, yeah.
I know. I like that term, outworking, but also out sacrificing.
Yeah.
Because while they're out playing, we're still working.
No, and and that's really, if, unfortunately, if you weren't able to achieve higher education or whatever, and you had to do everything the hard way, and literally that's the game plan.
Yeah.
You need to outwork them, out-sacrifice. Your friends are at the lake, you're at work. At midnight, you're still on the computer reading a trade journal about your industry.
Yeah.
Or, they may be out at a dinner function and you're not. So you make sacrifices and you work hard. And I wish I could have went back and went to Harvard and said, "Oh, I could have worked for 40 years, only working 60 hours a week. Much better." So, but yeah, it is what it is. I mean, whatever cards you're dealt in life, like you said, you can't be a victim. Whatever cards you're dealt, it's like, okay, you didn't come from a rich family, you're not an Ivy League student, but it's okay. You can still do it.
Yeah.
It's going to be a little harder. You can still do it. So, and that's what it's about. Life's funny. It deals you. Everybody gets dealt hard stuff. We all got to overcome obstacles in our life. Life's never been easy. Life is hard. Yeah. So, but it's really what you want to make out of it. How, like we've talked today, it's like what we've, kind of deduced from all of this is if you work your ass off and you sacrifice and you're like a sponge and you learn everything, your chances of success in your industry has elevated tremendously.
Yes.
And if you fail, guess what? There's a thing called try again. So, and you will make it. But if you stay committed to those core principles, you will make it in business. You know? And everybody's had failures in life. I mean, you see some of the most successful guys in the world. They had 2 or 3 businesses that failed, and they learned by their mistakes. And I learned. I wasn't error-free when I first started. I made tons of mistakes. The key was I learned by them. It's like, okay, you learned something, just don't duplicate it. If you keep duplicating, you won't be around. So, but that's kind of it in a nutshell.
One of the things that came into mind when we were talking about like what it takes to be successful, it's the ability to show up every day.
Yep.
The second one was the impeccable work ethic.
Yep.
And the third one is being financially disciplined.
Yeah.
Right. So going back to the undisciplined CEO, you know what I mean? Like the guy who makes all the money just spends it lavishly. That's a problem.
Well, that's another huge one. I mean, and there's a multitude of things that you have to, be mindful of in a business. But yeah, fiscal responsibility is certainly one. Yeah, I've seen it too. I've seen it a million times. The guys get in and they just, their names on the building. They're out painting stuff everywhere. They got country club memberships. They're just spending like a fool, and 2 years later they're not in the game anymore.
Yeah.
So you have to be really disciplined, and I mean I learned that early. It was like, as I told you, I think for a decade. I mean I literally eat top ramen and I'd go without to make payroll, just to make sure that all the team was fed and we were able to invest back into the business, buy new equipment, and build our vision. And you have to be extremely disciplined.
Yeah.
You get too wild, you're going to tank the business.
Yeah.
So, and we see that. That's careless leadership.
Yeah.
So,
what could you say for the aspiring entrepreneurs coming up when they see their number gradually go up as the years go on? What would you tell them? Like
patience, patience, my friend. Don't get, there's time in life that you can enjoy the fruits of your labor as you start to build mass or gain. And, as I said before, is like as you're building, is take care of your people, play the long game, look at the future. I mean, I think we all aspire at the same thing. Do you want to be comfortable when you get elderly in life? Well, at least I do. I mean, I think some guys want to just party their whole life, but it's like, and hey, and if you can do it and you get enough, knock yourself out. But most can't. I mean, reality is, you're going to work very hard. And you're going to shoot for 60, 65, 70 and wind it down. But you want to spend those later years enjoying, if you have children or grandchildren, you want to enjoy them, be financially stable. And, so when you get that point at the 40s or so, I think in my 40s, life was getting pretty good financially. I was making a lot of decisions, investing in more businesses. And, they never let go and said, okay, well, now it's just I can free will and company jets and we're going to go Vegas and Cabo every week. And none of that. I thought, there's a time and place for that. And it's like, finish the game, set a, an end line that you kind of want to wind up in. And then, it's not to say you can't have any fun. I mean, I have fun too. I go out to nice events and stuff like that. And, I'm not saying, hey, just eliminate fun in your life. That's no good. But just don't go. Anything that in the extreme is not good. You know, so everything's in moderation. So when you hit that pinnacle, stay in moderation.
Yeah.
And there's nobody's saying, hey, be a big party spoiler and sit home and don't do anything. No,
Yeah.
I'm not advocating for that. But it's just like everything's in moderation. You know, everything that you do it in moderation.
Yeah.
It's good to go have fun, take your wife out, girlfriend, whatever, kids, whatever. Go have fun, blow off some steam, take some stress off. That's great. It just can't be an excess all the time. You know, that's when it becomes problematic. So, like anything in life, when it's excess, you got a problem. So, you know, balance, moderation. That's it. So,
and
that'd be my advice.
And I feel like even like why we show up every day is, at least in my perspective, the reason why I show up every day is because I feel like I can lose it all tomorrow.
Yep.
You know, and that's why that's the thing. When people start things with their bare hands, it's almost like their duty to making sure everything is good, everything's under control, everything's in order.
When you create something from your bare hands, from the ground up, and that's what I did. I started out with absolutely nothing, not a pot to piss in, and when you took all those decades to build it, you protect it. You protect it. You know, it's like it's part of you, and you fight every day to protect it. And you know, your hopes is, you know, some all right. Unfortunately, I raised a few kids. I don't have any biological kids, so nobody to pass on my business to. But you know, I think a lot of people aspire. They want to grow their business and hand it off to their kids and let them, you know, enrich their lives. Yeah. And you know, but it's like, I don't know. It's a tough deal when you enter business because it's moving all the time. It's going all over the place. You don't know when you start where you're going to end up, and every decade things change a little bit. You might have a child and you say, "Oh well, I'm changing my business model now because I want to bring him in," or "Oh wait, I don't," and they don't want to be in the business, so now I want to position it to sell when I get older to retire. So, you know, when you're in business, the things moving around like this, the whole deal.
Yeah.
But it's like all the things that we talked about. I think that, you know, if you're a good guy and you have the work ethic, you have the knowledge, and you persevere and you make sacrifices, you know, I think at the end of the day, you're probably going to make good decisions, you know, or it's going to wind up good for you.
Yeah.
You're going to outperform the averages.
Yeah.
That's what the hope says, anyhow.
Yeah. How does it feel to be multiple steps ahead of your competition?
Feels good. So, no, it takes a lot of pressure off. It's like, yeah, I think having a competitive edge when we go into negotiating deals, it feels good to be in a position of power. Or, you know, it's kind of like car shopping, and it's like, and we go into this all the time. It's like, okay, there's a nice, beautiful Mercedes and there's a Volkswagen on the lot. They're both cars, but we all know that Mercedes is much higher quality. And it feels good to be viewed as a Mercedes, not a Volkswagen. Not dissing any of the two cars because they're both okay, but you know, the Mercedes clearly has some advantages to it. So it's good to operate at, you know, a stronger position. So it's good.
But don't they keep you innovating? They kind of keep you on your toes, right? Competition.
They do.
You know?
Oh, they're always there. So, no, and you've got to. It's like, and there will always be. And I tell everybody, there'll probably be some young kid that, like me, that comes up and challenges us. And great, more power to them. I mean, you're going to keep my old, you know, tail on its A game. So it's like, I love the challenge. If somebody brings it, and I'm like, I'm always up for a challenge. If you know you're that good and you can compete with us, I welcome it. I mean, and then probably at someday somebody will knock me off the throne. You know, maybe. So I'll probably step down from the throne before that happens, but it could happen. So,
do you think you're gonna retire soon?
I'm certainly, since the heart attack, I'm repositioning everything. I think my focus now is going to be on health. You know, it's not so much on profit. It's going to be more on health and longevity. Yeah. So it's like, you know, I'd kind of like to stay on the planet a little bit longer. So yeah, my number one focus is going to be health.
There's like that term, health is wealth.
Yeah,
You know
that's
what I mean?
right. Yeah, hey, you could take all my money. It's like, give me my health, I'll be good. So
Yeah.
yeah,
That's why I prioritize my nutrition, my fitness, my
Yeah.
sleep, you know?
So and I didn't. I did when I was young. I was in sports. I was a professional motorcycle. I did all this stuff when I was young.
Oh.
But the deeper you get into business, you put those things to the side because you just don't have time. It's where you used to go in the gym for an hour and a half. It's like, oh shit, I got problems this morning.
Yeah.
I can't go to the gym, and you're right into work. And then, you were eating supplements and everything. I got time for that. I just get instant coffee and slam it and go. So, yeah, it's you deviate from those healthy things in life. So that's the big thing I think I'm going to focus on now, is trying to get back to those things. Hopefully I didn't do so much damage. I can't repair it now. But yeah, that's one of the tough things about business. You'll step away from that and walk in that line where, balancing health and business is another tough one.
And I feel like I'm starting to feel that currently, because things are starting to scale. And I feel like the training schedule is a little different.
Oh,
You know what I mean? The eating is a little different.
Oh, yeah. No, hey, that's a tough one. And anybody will tell you, it's like, we all want to eat healthy and be on a regime, but in business, like I said, you've got to be fluid. You've got to react. Something happens, you've got to go deal with it. And it's like, oh, wait a minute, that's my gym time. Well, no gym time today. So gym time got blown out of the water because your truck's on fire on Highway 10 in Phoenix. So, so that's tough. But hey, business in general is tough. It's just like how you deal with it,
Yeah.
It's like, but and it's identifying, just like you did today. You identified a lot of key components that lead to successful businesses. So it's like you listen to all that and you try to implement it, but you still it's fluid. You're moving all over the place, but you never lose in sight of all those things that we talked about.
Yeah.
And, that's the keys to hopefully achieving success in whatever industry you get into.
Yeah, I feel like just everybody can teach me something. Like even with you, you are a high caliber individual. So for me to be able to sit here with you is truly an honor on my end. But even like when I exit this building, there could be a young kid out there. He could teach me something too. So going back to the principle in the beginning, be a sponge.
Yeah, be a sponge. I get taught all the time. And, it's funny too, is, a lot of the younger generation, they teach me stuff all the time because I'm not in tune with what they've learned. They grew up with technology. Mm-hmm. We didn't. Yes. We did everything. When we had we thought we were cool when we had thermal paper faxes. And so these young kids, they'll grab my phone and whip something out in like 2 seconds. I'm fumbling around with for 30 minutes, have no idea what I'm doing. They're like, oh, Mr. Joe, let me just pop. Like, there you go. Like, thanks, kid. So it's kind of cool.
Yeah.
So we're always, everybody's learning.
Yeah.
Everybody's learning.
Agreed. Yeah. Well, David, I really want to be respectful of your time. You are a very, very busy man. So my very last question, in your experience of life and all the experience of business that you have been involved in, how would you define success?
That's tough. I would define success as this. If you've achieved, after all your years in work, a place that you're happy with, that you have a happy life with a family, and you have enough financial security to take care of yourself, I think you've achieved success. And I don't think you have to set a bar so high that, I need to have 150 million, or I need, 200 million. If you had 500,000 and you ended it and you had a blessed life and you had a good wife and children and stuff, I think you've made success. Some people, want to set the bar too high that's unrealistic. And, I just think that when you can find a point in your life that you've reached a comfort level, you've found success.
Yeah.
When you're comfortable, you made it.
Yes.
And it's like, just don't set the bar too high. It's like some people fail at that. They put false expectations up. I've never aspired to be Bill Gates or Elon Musk. And it's like, well, I'm envious of these guys. I'm like, wow, they've accomplished a lot in life. They turned in, mega money, but I don't say, oh, I'm a failure if I didn't get that.
Yes.
I think if you find a place that you're comfortable with, you've achieved success.
Yeah.
So, it's like everybody will find their own comfort level. I've found mine. I'm already okay today, so I feel good.
Yes.
So I'm happy where I'm at right now.
Yeah. Well, David, are there any closing statements you'd like to give for the podcast?
No, I wanted to thank you. It's the first time I've ever done one of these things.
Yeah.
So it's like something new for me. So I appreciate you coming and introducing me to this new world.
Yeah.
I hear about all the podcasts, but to be honest, I work so much. I've never listened to one.
Yeah.
I don't even watch TV. That's how bad my life is.
Me too.
It's I've got, when I retire, I'll have 40 years of shows that I never even got to see. So it's I'll never run out of movies. But no, thank you. I appreciate you coming out today.
Yeah.
It was really fun spending time with you.
Yeah, and David, honestly, like I said, you are a very busy man, and it is truly an honor for me, for you to give your time to me, truly. And this is our first meeting, and it just shows the kind of leader you are to be able to put time aside for an individual you are just meeting today.
No, the moment I talked to you, I said that this kid's on his job. I'm sure, come on down.
Well, David, thank you
Good.
again. Thank you again for coming on, my man.
And I wish you the best with you. I can truly tell you the best.
Thank you. I appreciate that, David. Thank you.
Thank you all for tuning in to today's episode. If you got a lot of value out of this, please do me a favor and support our channel by liking, commenting, and subscribing. Again, thank you all for the support. I'll see you next time. Stay loving, stay hungry, and stay excellent.